Hi, do you struggle with anxiety? Do you find that you need something to do with your hands when you get anxious, or just simply need affordable presents to give people at Christmas time? Well, knitting might just be for you. You can make lots of things by knitting. For instance, you can make clothing. Lots of people make hats or scarves. Here is a scarf that I've made. You can also make decorations. For instance, I'm making a nativity scene for my in-laws. Um, my favorite thing to make personally is teddy bears. So I've made dogs and straight up teddy bears. People tend to be intimidated by this craft, but it's really very simple. All you have to do is learn your basic skills, um, learn what the abbreviations mean, and eventually you start learning how to read the patterns. So when you start a project, the first thing you're going to have to do is cast on. So that means put the yarn onto the needle. So how you do that is you make a slip knot. So you just take the yarn, have it in the flat of your palm, wrap it around your fingers, and then pass it through the yarn itself and pull tight. So then you put that onto one of your needles, pull it tight. So I'm going to pass the needle into the front of the stitch and then take the yarn and wrap it around that needle and then pull it through. So basically you're knitting the stitch onto the needle. So that's two. Put the needle through, wrap around, and pass through. So knitting, most people, from what I understand, knit by passing the needle into the front of the stitch like we were doing earlier. But the way I've learned is by passing it into the back, as you can see here. So you pass it into the back, wrap, and pull it through and slide it onto your other stitch or onto your other needle. Pass it through, wrap, pull through, and pass. Pass it through, wrap, pull through, and let it go. So next we're going to be learning how to purl. So in this case, you put the stitch into the front, or the needle into the front, wrap around, and pull through. And otherwise, it's the exact same as knitting, you're just going into the opposite side of the stitch. Oh. So the last thing you're going to do is you're going to cast off. So you're going to pretend to purl just like normal, in this case, because our scarves are on this side. So you're going to purl and purl. And instead of continuing on to the next stitch, we're actually going to pick up the back of the first one and pull it over the second stitch that we did. So then we're going to purl another stitch, pick up the back, and pull it over. So I've just continued casting off until I have one stitch left. So you can see there's this nice row. So to finish, you just pull up on the needle to make that stitch nice and big so that you can pass your finger through. Pull the needle off. I'm going to use my other finger. This is where you take your scissors and cut your yarn. So then you pass it through that loop and just pull up to finalize the stitch. Now, if you're anything like me, you will tend to get it carried away with your knitting. That brings us to self-care. Well, knitting does help loosen joints, especially if you have arthritic ones. Too much can result in carpal tunnel syndrome. To help, You can use ergonomic needles or compression gloves, which are what these are. Another thing that you need to make sure you do is to take breaks. You can get carried away. Uh, I sometimes knit for 8 hours straight, and my hands are so stiff and sore after. Practice makes better. You won't be perfect. It's fine. No one cares. Small mistakes aren't a big deal. So get out there, find your favorite yarn, needles, and a pattern, and make something for someone. It's okay if that someone is you. Create, de stress, and don't forget to take care of your hands. They're so important. Have fun!